Thanks, Will.
And we are live on the YouTube.
All right. Welcome everybody to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It's Tuesday, May 13th, and we are here this afternoon to learn about grid cybersecurity with the Department of Public Service, Velco, Green Mountain Power, and Burlington Electric. So we'll just go around the table and introduce ourselves, and then have folks in the room introduce themselves and on screen as well. So I'm Rep. Kathleen James from Manchester.
Richard Bailey, Memorial 2.
Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Dara Torrey, Washington 2.
Graham Kleppner, Tiverton 13, Burlington.
Jack Locker, Committee Assistant.
Scott Campbell, representative from St. Johnsbury.
Great. And joining us today,
Amber Whitmer from Burlington Electric.
great.
Candace Morgan, Green Mountain Power.
Mark Checo, Green Mountain Power.
Dan Nelson, Vermont Electric Power.
Super. All right. And oh yeah, sorry.
Griffin Style and AOT.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. All righty. For the record, I think Bill, are you first?
Yes, I believe so.
Great. For the record, you are.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to testify today. My name is Bill Jordan. I'm the Director of Engineering at the Department of Public Service.
Great. And do you have written testimony to share?
Yes, I do. I can share my screen to walk through it, and I emailed it to Jack earlier, and I believe he printed it for you.
Super.
Okay, can you see my screen? I'm showing a Public Utility Commission order.
We can.
Okay, perfect. So I will, my testimony will be fairly brief. I'm going to outline the process we have for meeting with the electric utilities and Efficiency Vermont on an annual basis. And this comes from a Public Utility Commission order that was issued on December 11th, 2019. It was actually in the advanced metering docket, but what they did in that docket was to provide a final order approving a statement of principles relative to cybersecurity for electric utilities. And so now I'm going to scroll down to the last 2 pages, which are the process that the PUC outlined. So page 9, and I'm starting on page 9. And what the PUC has provided here, which actually was the result of work between the Department of Public Service and the electric utilities, we provided this for the PUC and they approved it. So these principles outline a process for the department to convene an annual meeting to meet with the utilities. Paragraph 1 is simply an acknowledgement of the importance of adhering to cybersecurity requirements. And paragraph 2 requires each utility to develop and maintain a cybersecurity program. And paragraph 2 goes on to say that upon a request, each utility will provide the Department of Public Service an oral briefing. And we can do that on a one-on-one basis. Paragraph 3 is what starts the annual meeting. And this order was issued in December 2019. We did not get a meeting in before the COVID restrictions in 2020. We worked on some of the documents remotely, but we held our first meeting in 2021. And we've held them every year since. We have not held our 2025 meeting yet. That's anticipated to happen maybe late summer, early fall of this year. But what this order sets out is a process for the department to convene an annual meeting, which we do in person with the utilities due to the sensitive nature of the topic. And we talk about any significant developments arising from the cybersecurity programs of the utilities, any new or proposed state or federal standards that the utilities will have to adhere to. And a big area of our annual meetings is the areas of prospective collaboration. It's a great time for the utilities to share information and processes that they're using for cybersecurity. And paragraph D just gets into the utility can voluntarily report any observations they wanted to share during the meeting. And then the last paragraph, E, talks about communication protocols, including confidentiality protections in the event that a utility experiences a cyber incident. And then paragraph 4 gets into the reporting requirements. Paragraph 4 requires that the utility report to the Commissioner of Department of Public Service if the attack results in the release of confidential customer information or a compromise of grid reliability. And then finally, paragraph 5 talks about annually that the department will offer to provide an oral briefing to the PUC, which I have done every year after meeting with the utilities in the meeting of paragraph 4. And that's all I had for the process. So this is what we've been following every year since this order came out. And I can answer questions now or later. It's up to the committee.
Do folks have questions on this? I just wanted to make sure I understood. So at a really high level, the process that's in place right now is that each utility is required to maintain its own cybersecurity program.
Yes.
And then you guys come together once a year to share all of that information, between the departments and with and among the utilities. And then there's some reporting requirements.
That's correct.
Okay. And then what you had mentioned earlier, something that I don't know much about, which is that you said there are also federal requirements and federal standards. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can talk a little bit about it. The utilities can probably talk much better about it because they're the ones that have to adhere to them. But
Okay.
there are federal requirements from from the regional entities that start with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and work their way down to North American Electric Reliability Corporation, NERC, and ISO New England as well. But I think Velco, GMP, and BED can speak much better to those than I can.
Okay. Did committee members have any questions for Mr. Jordan?
Or I'll ask a question if nobody else does.
Yeah, Rep Campbell.
Sure. I guess I'm wondering whether the meetings have been pretty routine or has anything come up that has really sort of gotten your attention, changes that should be made to protocols or anything like that?
Not changes that are made to the protocols that I shared in this order, but as I said before, the collaboration part of it has been extremely productive. The utilities discussing among each other the technical details and sharing, well, we use this certain software or we use this vendor, et cetera, to help each other out.
So it sounds like it's been pretty routine. Nothing alarming has been.
That's correct. Nothing alarming, right?
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Thanks, Mr. Jordan.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Righty.
I think.
Great.
I am. Paper copies. Don't mind.
Great.
Oh, you have them? Yeah. That's not necessary. Exactly what I have.
Yeah.
My name is Dan Nelson. I'm the Vermont Electric Power Company. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Velco. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I think everyone's familiar with Velco and what our role is here. We're in a position of being regulated tightly and strictly by FERC. That authority is delegated to NERC, the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, and we fall in the region, northeast part of the country. So we fall in the NPCC region. So that's the Northeast Power Coordinating Council. My testimony here today won't go into any details of how we conduct exactly our program. I just want to review with you our program, what it contains, and the importance of what we do. The FERC, NERC, NPCC program, we have a lot of eyes watching what we do. So it's important that we're on top of everything in that regard. And so we have a history of performing well in that space. And I can explain that very shortly. Our infrastructure is architected in a way. We have private infrastructure, private fiber optic cables to each of our substations. That's how we control our substations. And we also have our own private data center. So all of our infrastructure is within our own 6 walls of protection, if you will. I think it's that architecture gives us sort of a leg up. Most utilities in the nation depend heavily on some sort of a private infrastructure, public infrastructure. And so that's a little bit of our architecture that we depend on. Our business systems and our control systems are completely separated. So there's no mixing of that. The business systems being storage, corporate data, email, things of the sort, whereas the others are where we're controlling the power. That clear separation is, of course, pretty important. I think it's what you would expect. That infrastructure that we have is routinely audited. We engage third-party assessments so that as we make changes to our infrastructure, we audit that. We bring in penetration testing. We have folks doing the assessments that you would expect in terms of vulnerability, our systems patch, so on and so forth. And that's part of our normal and routine work. That first slide here it's important that part of our program is to stay connected. So this is an example of who the organizations that we're continuously engaged with. This is not all of them, of course, because the list goes on. One of the more recent ones that we've joined is NEWTIC. That's a New England Utility Cyber Infrastructure Collaboration. It's in the UCIC. And that gives us access to deeper federal agencies under a secure umbrella that we wouldn't otherwise be able to get. So we travel to New Hampshire to a skiff so we can get briefs in that space. So that's new to us, but so far it's working out quite well for us. As I said, we're audited by ourselves. We engage our own, but also the Federal Regulatory Commission, NPCC, and NERC are also auditing us on a regular basis. It's pretty routine now. Over the course of the time that I've been leading this role, we've generally had findings of best practices in our program. There's always some finding. Nothing has ever arisen that's of any concern or alarm, but any audit, there's always like, oh, you could do this a little bit better, or you could do that a little bit better. And so we're always interested in making those adjustments, and we address those as they come. Now, recently, as of last year, we won the audit. So normally our NPCC audits come through, and we go through that process. But we won a lottery of sorts. FERC audited us, and as I understand it, FERC only audits about 2 utilities per year. So we won that. It was hands down the most thorough assessment and investigation, I would say, of all of our infrastructure. They went deep, wide, and it was quite an experience, I would say. But the good news is there were no significant findings. They had some control improvements for us. It was overall, it was a pretty good experience. Strangely, that report is not done. So that was this time last year. They were wrapping up, and we have not yet received the final report. And I would say that that's sort of testimony that there's nothing significant. They haven't completed the report and it hasn't been passed back to us. But in the closing remarks, they give us comments of like, hey, you could tighten this up or make some improvements here or there. And we've taken those and put them into action. I know I'm being very brief here, but the essence of what I was describing was our program starts with strict regulatory requirements. We have a strong architecture using private infrastructure. We have a strong engagement with interested industry experts, if you will. And then through the audit process, we're in a continuous loop of improvement. That's questions.
Rep. Clipper.
Are you at liberty to tell us how many cyber attacks you fend off a year?
An attack defined, probably thousands. I mean, it's an attempt continuously, always. So the exact numbers on that, I don't know because it is literally continuous.
Like how many raindrops does your roof keep off your
Yeah,
house?
kind of like that.
Got it.
Yeah. Rep.
And maybe this is irrelevant, electromagnetic pulses, does this have any concern for you folks, and are you protected or?
So we have 2 data centers, and one of them is built to sustain an electromagnetic pulse if a nuclear weapon were to use that pulse. It's at that's our primary data center, and that's been tested not with a real weapon, but with proper test equipment. So yes, we are protected for that.
Are you aware of other transmission utilities around the states that have been successfully attacked?
We have not had any, I guess when you say successful, no, we have had attempts, which we could see them happening, but nothing, there's been no intrusion in our system.
In other systems around the country, or you don't?
I
you're not
can't.
aware of?
Well, I can't speak for Green Mountain Power or any of the Vermont utilities, but there have been, about pipelines and other utilities.
Yeah, thanks. Pipeline.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think just about that is the private nature of our infrastructure gives us all about that.
I had seen in the policy that, let's see here, that if a cybersecurity attack results in the release of confidential customer information, compromise of grid reliability, or required reporting to another entity, that the utility has to report to DPS. And I was curious to know what public reporting requirements there might be. Is that a question more for the utilities or?
Well, I think it applies for all of us.
Yeah, like
for
at what
Velco,
point would something become public?
we don't have customer information per se because our customers are the distribution
Yeah.
utilities, so it doesn't really impact us the same way in terms of complying with that. We had one occasion where, out of an abundance of caution, that we did notify the state, although we had evidence that there was nothing released. So in that circumstance, it's just like transparency is the best policy.
And when you notify the state, you notify DPS, and then do they, I guess I'm curious more about public information. Like at what point would regular Vermonters find out that there had been some kind of attack that merited reporting?
So we report through the ISAC. We would, of course, contact the DIC, the BI, DHS, the department, BPS, and we have a protocol that takes us through all those notifications. Part of our crisis communication plan.
And is that part of the communication chain all confidential? Like that's all? I'm curious about at what point there would be like a press release. Right? Like we're announcing something publicly.
If they're so, because we don't have the same customer data as a distribution utility, that would be, I think our communications team would handle that as part of our crisis communication protocol. If the grid were in any jeopardy or there was concern about grid reliability, certainly we would be transparent with the department and all the agencies in that regard.
Rep. Sibilia.
Sorry, I was late. Nice to see you here. One of the things, Madam Chair, I would bring to your attention, and I don't think Mr. Nelson can help us with this, but this is the space where it's coming to mind. I've asked the question a number of times, and may have suggested this to you. At what point does the legislature get informed that something like this has happened, particularly speakers in this session? And I think that's the administration's job and our job to make sure that that's in statute, unless you know.
I don't know.
So it's a
Sorry.
question.
Did you have a question for you? Rep. Morrow?
A few years ago at the national level, there was concern about switches and chips, other components made by foreign entities related to security. Does that come into play in our grid at all?
It does, SIP 13, Critical Infrastructure Protection Policy 13 requires us to go through an evaluation of the products that we purchase, the ones that we use in our infrastructure, vetted vendors, and there's a list, but we know some of them are highlighted public. You will never be able to buy that and put it in your infrastructure. So that SIP 13 covers that program.
So that's already happened, or that's just an ongoing?
It's an ongoing, we have to renew those every period. I think it's 18 months. So we're constantly going through the process of evaluating the vendors we use, the products we buy, and ensuring that they're not only us, but they're approved.
Any other questions? We're done. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Mark Pincheco. I am the Chief Technology Executive at Green Mountain Power. Happy to have the opportunity to speak with you all today. Hopefully I can share some things with you and forgive me in advance for the things that I can't share. I'm more used to back and forth conversational style talking, but I do have a prepared statement, some things I just want to get in front. So I'll share a little bit about my background, some of our philosophy, and then talk about the living samples. Again, my name is Mark Pincheco. I'm the Chief Technology Executive at Green Mountain Power. Been with the company for 15 years now and have been overseeing the security function at them. Prior to working at Green Mountain Power, I held similar roles at Bergen Snowboards, Ben & Jerry's. Prior to that, we was British Telecom, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and a small agency in DoD. I've been working on security intensely for about 25 years. That's primarily for fun. I hold a master's in information security from Norwich, and I hold the notably generally useless distinction of being the first Vermont resident to graduate from that program back in 2001. After graduation, I somehow decided that I had not had enough time in the academic environment, so I moved over to Champlain and taught graduate level security there for a couple of years. Philosophically, at GMP, we're keenly aware of the service that we provide and also the customers that we serve. Over the years, we've substantially enhanced our security programs and all of our practices. I've been very fortunate, despite the challenges, to be able to hire excellent analysts and engineers to work with us. So that's been a complete bonus. In terms of compliance, like the other utilities, we rely heavily on frameworks from NIST, the SANS Institute, and other places. Federally, we have fewer requirements than, say, Velco does. But we do have some with our critical generating facilities and some other things. Like Velco, GMP consistently checks how it's doing by encouraging outside audits. We have internal audits, external audits, lots of audits. We audit everything we do. And we take that as positive. It illustrates for us things that we need to apply to. Presently, we are working on building, or we're almost at completion of building a security operations center at one of our facilities. Think of this as a mini control room of sorts where we will observe the grid, our security apparatus, and networking traffic within the state. It's quite a substantial computing environment. So from there, that'll kind of be where we identify and then begin to triage security incidents if and when they come up. GMP also partners with several external firms, security firms, to help us analyze primarily the things that we're seeing, and then to help us in a phone a friend capacity in the event where we have an event. All GMP employees are indoctrinated into our security program from day one. The very first day, we'll go have orientation, and I'm grateful that the company a few years ago decided that security should be part of that orientation. So right from day one, everybody gets an orientation to security, what they should be looking for, and then we re-emphasize that every month for training month in the company. On the threat landscape itself, we've seen an uptick in activity in recent months, targeted at the electrical sector. Nothing of consequence, but we do see activity ramping up a little bit, more of a yellow alert, not a red alert. Mostly gone are the tactics that you used to see, which were people trying to insert viruses or Trojans or things like that into our environment. Almost everything in the last few years has transitioned over to phishing attacks. That's sort of now where they're just trying to get you to click on something so that they can ransomware you and try to get your money back. Internally, we also have developed a notion of the human firewall. So all of this technology is excellent and great, and we're very fortunate to be able to apply it. But nothing is more useful to us than creating human firewalls out of our employees. And they are encouraged when they notice things that are unusual or don't make sense to get in touch with us right away. And that has served us extremely well. We maintain a large physical security infrastructure around our substations, plants, and other facilities. We keep that up from year to year. A lot of technology. We have a lot of surface area to cover, so we're kind of in a rotating maintenance program to try to keep things up to speed and keep everything patched. AI has come up a lot lately, and I just speak to that briefly. We've seen a lot of conversation about AI as a force multiplier for security events. However, we have not seen it actually occurring on our periphery, which is good. And it also gives us time to prepare for that eventuality, because it's at some point we'll start to see those enhanced attacks ahead of time. So in summary, I feel GMP is generally well prepared. Customer is always first in our minds when we're securing our infrastructure. When you go to turn your light on, you want that switch to work, and you're going to get your light. And we make sure from the security perspective that we're doing whatever we can to help that and commitment for our customers. We basically thrive on learning and improving, auditing what we're doing, and then trying to make necessary changes. That's it in a nutshell. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Great. Brett Kuckner.
Seems like a few years ago, there was a spate of people shooting up substations. Did you have any of that?
I don't think we've endured any substation attacks at all since I've been there. Occasionally, Belco and other people, us included, especially during hunting season, I don't know what the attraction is. Maybe Dan knows more, but there's an attraction to shooting at fiber bundles going across fields or from tower to tower, or place to place. We had one a few weeks back. Somebody shot at a fiber bundle up in, I think, the Milton area. And it's just random troublemakers, basically, just shooting at things to see if they can get anything.
Another question.
Yeah.
Do you recall that we used to work together?
Absolutely. How could I forget?
We worked at Ben and Jerry's together 20 years ago, and we dressed rather differently than we do now.
Yeah.
And I think we were both clean shaven at that time.
That's right.
For the record.
Yeah.
For our fans on YouTube who were wondering.
Yeah, Mark.
You mentioned AI in terms of hacks, but is there a role for AI in defense?
Absolutely. We take it with caution because everybody's on the AI bandwagon. There's no product you can buy that doesn't have a AI inside sticker on it somewhere.
Right.
But the massive volumes of data that we see, and to kind of enhance on what Bilko said, we see millions of drive-bys per day, basically, on our network infrastructure. Most of them are innocuous and they're handled very easily. But sorting through that traffic using AI, we're already prototyping a number of tools in that way. And it's extremely useful for digging into like what's really going on here, because simply the human mind can't wrap itself around something that big.
From Clipper?
And do you have a sense of where the attacks are coming from, whether they're internal US or international?
To be fair, it's everywhere. Even with the foreign adversaries, nation state level actors, if they're not attacking from overseas, they compromise infrastructure in the US and attack from here. And so it's not always easy to tell precisely where they're coming from. We do engage with FBI and other law enforcement on a regular basis to try to, when we have a real question, like, where's this coming from? They're instrumental to kind of get through those levels.
Red Cullen, I don't want to put you on the spot. I thought, and now I'm not remembering, I thought you had a question.
Well,
Since we had folks in the room, and
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't remember what it was.
No,
If I
my
keep looking
question-
at you,
my-
you wanted to know something.
yes, well, I had a question about the substation controls, over voltage, under voltage, out of frequency control, but I don't think that is connected to the cyber. That'd be more of your controls people.
That's
And so they are not the source to ask this
Okay.
question of. And, yes, so I thought about that. But-
Great.
Okay, but I guess it does lead me to the, Velco said that their controls and their business, sections are separated.
Yes.
And you mentioned, fiber. Green Mountain Power have its own fiber optics.
We have some, yes.
Some, well, I don't know. I think the fiber in Rutland, former CV employee, fiber in Rutland was at the time connecting the various offices around Rutland and now.
Yeah.
Or
We have small on fire and we absolutely rely on Delco for most of our transport in the state.
and then the Velco's, you come off the Velco system into the individual substations by fiber. Or?
Yes. And then just to speak to the security side of maintaining voltage and frequency and things like that. It's actually a unique situation at GMP that the SCADA team reports into me as well. So all of the things that we're doing with security is also applied to the SCADA team, to the tech ops business as well.
But has SCADA moved from to use modern communications? I don't know how SCADA communicated
Yes.
years ago, but so you have independent, non-GMP sources that communicate your data.
Almost everything is generally handled internally, private networks or application networks that we buy that are private spaces within public telecommunications infrastructure.
Thank you.
Any more questions for GMP? Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you. Burlington Electric, yes. Okay.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Erica.
So I was with you guys about 3 years ago. I'm Erica Ferlin, Director of IT at Burlington Electric Department. I am also the electric utility representative on the Vermont Cybersecurity Advisory Council. I believe you heard from Denise Riley Hughes last week. She may have mentioned on that council. Um, my background prior to BED was largely as a systems consultant for e-commerce and enterprise customers. So I've seen a lot. I've been through a lot. Um, so I've been with the department a bit over 3 years. And in that time, we've made a number of substantial upgrades in software operations, user training, much of which, like Dan and Mark, I can't talk about, but it's good. Um, we we've been able to improve our posture pretty dramatically in that time. But the offside of that is that it has been a significant cost and expense to keep up with the ever evolving, you know, threats and the bad actors that are out there. Um, like Velco and GMP, we have a separation between our business and SCADA operational environments. Um, we have also had third-party evaluations of our environment, and we were very, very lucky to have that funded as part of a Department of Energy prize that we were awarded. Um, like Mark, day one orientation, we have users go through cybersecurity training. And then ongoing on an annual basis, we test all of our users, train all of our users again. And then we also send test phishing messages anywhere between 3 and 5 a month, various levels of sophistication. We're trying to get our users to know what to look for, right? Because what we're seeing when 3 years ago, the phishing emails we got were not targeted. They were very generic, scattershot, right? We're sending this to 500,000 emails and it might go to three or four. Now we're seeing the level of sophistication where phishing emails are targeted and they know who our users are and they know our organizational structure. And they leverage that. And that's a lot of training for users to internalize as well as do all the things that they need to do in a regular day. Um, so since I was here 3 years ago, I was able to convert an existing position and create a cybersecurity engineer position, which has made a tremendous impact on our ability to manage alarms, monitor logs, collect information, be aware of information. We're smaller than Velco and GMP considerably, um, but we have a third party SOC, Security Operations Center, that is monitoring our logs 24/7 and paging us if they see anything that looks questionable. Um, and then in January, we got very, very lucky and we were able to get a DOE funded, Department of Energy funded operational technology cyber training course provided by Idaho National Labs. And we brought them into Burlington Electric. We had many of our fellow utilities in Vermont and Maine and Massachusetts come join us for this completely free training, um, which also allowed the utilities to network. There was a lot of social networking. Um, Wonderful experience. I would love to do it again if DOE is able to ever do that kind of funding again. Um, and then, like I said, generically, we have seen threats that have just matured in sophistication and targeted at our users. In February of this year, we were able to retire our VPN, our traditional a VPN in favor of a zero trust solution. What we were seeing at the time that we shut down that VPN, which had multi-factor, but we were seeing 6 requests a second hitting that VPN, many of them with known users, right? Like we have users that have been with the organization for 30 years. Their information is out there. So that was a level of attempt that was surprising and uncomfortable for us. And it was a great day when we shut down that VPN. So work is ongoing, threats are evolving, and like Mark and Dan alluded to, it's an expensive process to try to keep up with the folks that can scatter shot at us. So happy to take questions.
Thanks, Erica. Questions for Burlington Electric? Great.
Oh, come on, Dan and Mark got all the questions. You have nothing for me?
What's your password?
27 characters.
Oh, man. Yeah, we do have a question. There we go.
So in Burlington, are attacks directed specifically at any part of the system at the McNeil plant comes to mind immediately as a potential target versus the distribution grid?
Yeah, so like Velco, we own our own fiber. So we have a ring that supports our AMI network. It supports connectivity from McNeil to the business network. So, physical security is out of my realm. But McNeil is well off the accessible path, right? Someone would have to be able to traverse our network to impact operations there.
All right. Yeah, wait.
Well, I guess this goes back to GMP and Burlington Electric. But if you have private fiber, at some point in time, isn't there something where the public interfaces that the communications can be integrated between customer and your private network? I don't know.
So if you're asking anyone,
Well, it doesn't matter, but you mentioned about private fiber. I just thought that at some point in time, the private fiber, be it coming into a substation or a control center, and the public fiber also comes into that control center for business purposes. Are they completely separated?
Yeah. And ours is as well, right? Like our private fiber terminates at one of our 2 Burlington locations where we have data centers. And then incoming network connectivity, whether it's from our internet provider or Velco, we work very closely with Velco and they're a fantastic team there. Those are all separate with different networks, and we have very tight network segregation where this is a business need, this is separate, this is a separate business need, this is also separate, and the two don't really talk. And there are multiple firewalls in between in the event that something does need to talk, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Erica. Does anybody have any questions for anybody before we wrap and adjourn for the day? Okay. Thanks so much, everybody.